Coming to you from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, this is The Stand with your hosts, Shane Williams and Lance Dobbs. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of The Stand. Today we're going to be talking about NSA and what it means, what it's doing, and where it's going. But before that, we'll talk a little bit about, there's not much this week going on, but there was one thing that we do want to talk about.
So we're going to talk about what Bernie Sanders said and what's going around in the big news right now. Basically, he's saying all white people don't know what being poor is, and no white people has been poor or have lived in the ghetto and they don't know what the ghetto is.
Right. From personal experience, I lived in multiple poor neighborhoods. I mean, just things that happened in my life and previous and stuff like that. So from a personal experience, being a white person, I know what it is to live poverty. Now, as far as getting pulled out of cars and stuff like that I don't know. I can tell you from personal experience, I think the most I got in trouble with the law is a speeding ticket. But I mean, as far as everything else, buying food stamps, using them, living in very poor communities, I've been there, done that, and it wasn't a great experience. And I rose above it to try to get out of the ghetto, as Bernie Sanders says. To that, I think if I were any other race, I would feel offended, saying that, everybody originates from there. I mean, that's my view. Again, that's how I look at what he was saying. That only white people only know what it is to be rich and everything else like that.
All right. So now we're gonna switch over to NSA.
Yeah, switching gears, we're going to start talking about NSA. Like I said earlier, start getting into that. So Lance will start off with the history and everything, and we'll go from there.
So NSA, it's a National Surveillance. What does A stand for? Something. Agency, National Surveillance Agency, and started back in the 1960s with a company a project called Echelon, and then it was originally to watch over Russia and some of Russia's allies back in the Cold Wars. And then it just gradually turned into global surveillance and watching everybody.
Right.
NSA consists of over 20 different organizations and companies that we know about that have been published and released through leaks, and what some of those do. One of the main ones that we're going to be talking about is PRISM, the one that Edward Snowden released out a couple years ago, and basically what they're doing with all their stuff.
Right. So with the 20 organizations, like Lance said, it's just so much information, just ridiculous amounts of deeper organizations within those organizations, all blanketed by the NSA. Which you, the viewer, which we encourage is to go research this stuff for yourself. We're putting a mass blanket over something just to talk about within 15 minutes, and we want you to self-educate. I remember back in the day where they used to have commercials where knowledge is power, but now you don't see those anymore. They were trying to keep the knowledge and power to certain people, and the ones who know knowledge and stuff like that, they want to say that we're conspiracy theorists, even though it's not true. So going on about PRISM and CISPA.
Talk about CISPA and CISA.
Right. So I don't know if you guys remember a couple years back, CISPA was the hottest thing, and it was all over Google, Yahoo. Every time you try to search, pull up a search engine, it's pretty much, hey, sign this petition against CISPA. The reason why the companies were doing it back then is because the companies themselves, Google, Yahoo, AOL, they weren't protected under the protection rights of the NSA grabbing people's information, which translates to them getting sued by the American public if they were to find out. Now, I say if because no one really investigates stuff. I'm wondering why this was such a big deal. Too busy playing video games, looking at sports, what have you. But it is a big deal. It's pretty much what CISPA was the NSA or other third-party members were able to gather your information, and like I said, the company giving that information away wouldn't be protected. So moving on to today, we have CISA, which pretty much protects those companies from the government or other third-party organizations grabbing their information. That being said, you don't hear nothing on it on the Google's website or Yahoo or any other search engines because now they're protected. They can just give the information away and and there will be no backlash for that. So nobody can go back and openly sue. That's why if you notice recently, last year, a lot of user agreements with apps. I know on my iPhone, the user agreements have changed, and you have to accept.
Everything. You have to accept everything.
Right, you have to accept everything, otherwise your phone doesn't work.
Yep.
So it's either you do it or
you don't get access to it.
Right, exactly. So going further into PRISM, which Edward Snowden was a part of.
So PRISM was basically they watched all of everything that you sent electronically. It all went through PRISM. Cell phone records, Skype, video calls, voice chats, emails, everything that you have sent on an electronic device went through PRISM, and they have it.
Right.
And then where do they store all this stuff?
Oh, it's very funny. Well, if we travel out to Utah, a little town, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but they do have a Utah data collection agency out there, which was recently built a couple years ago with the NSA, and pretty much it is a data collection storage thing for everything.
Just a giant storage center.
Right, your emails, your cell phones, your purchase history. I mean, everything that goes on your cell phone through email digitally is being stored on these massive mega computers on a 1.5 million square feet facility. Now, there's a quote I wanted to tell you guys from one of the directors or whatever. Pull that up for me.
Yep. So we'll go over to that.
All right. So Richard Dickey George, who retired from the NSA in 2011 after 40 years, said, "Facility isn't nearly as interesting or mysterious as some think. He calls it more than a little more than a giant storeroom, inundated with increasing volumes of secretly taped phone calls, intercepted emails, and poached records of online purchases. The NSA needed a mega warehouse to put it all in." Now, I like how he downplays what it actually is, and it's not just for people who they want to say that they're targeting. It's a massive data collection storage room, and I love just how he just downplays it, just nonchalantly comes out to what hey, this is what we're doing, but who cares? I got my iPhone, I got my sports, collect my stuff. I don't care. I got nothing to hide, and that's what everybody's narrative. But if you really look at it, it's just spying on you constantly. I mean, you drive down the street, you look at the stop sign, and you see 3-4 different cameras posted up there, and
all the different stoplights,
different angles, monitor you every single move.
Buildings everywhere.
I mean,
if you just go down to the strip where we live now.
Right, exactly.
There's cameras on every single switch.
I'm talking about even if before you enter the strip, maybe what, 5 miles out, 10 or less, you're on camera, and every single move that you make is being watched. I mean, just from us locally here in Las Vegas, where we see this. I mean, it's just insane, and people are so fine with it, and everything else like that.
So let's go about and talk about some of how it's getting into mainstream media, why people just don't see it, but it's in a lot of AAA movies,
right?
And they all have their different versions of how the spying is going on, and probably they're going into some of the things that they're doing, and they're just showing it in movies.
Right. So it's life imitating art, or is it art imitating life? So from my point of view, it's actually art imitating life. So our first one here, we're going to go into the Dark Knight. If you folks ever seen the movie, pretty much there's a scene where he has to find the Joker, and he uses everybody's cell phone as a pinging device or a sonar to try to map out the whole city. And we'll have that clip up for you guys and everything, so you can actually see what we're talking about.
And then, so the next one was in Fast and the Furious 7. We're going to talk about the God's Eye, which is basically the whole movie's about. And It's a global surveillance program. It hacks into every single electronic device, will use its camera, pulls up information on those records, goes through basically everything electronically, and can find you, and uses cameras off the street lights to facial recognition software that they have, and they could click a button, type in a name, find that person within probably like 4 or 5 seconds.
Right.
And anywhere in the world.
So a Google search for people.
Yeah.
Another movie that we going to post up on here is actually Eagle's Eye with Shia LaBeouf. I don't know if you've seen them. LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Whatever. Pretty much the same thing, where that mega supercomputer is able to track down anybody at any given point. Pretty much the whole program, God's Eye, later shown on Fast and Furious. Keep going on to the next one. We have Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now, I think, to me, this movie really portrays the ultimate surveillance, drones and everything else like that. Now, if you were to take in the movie, they have these helicarriers, or
they're just giant flying gunships that launch. They're flying carriers.
Right.
So.
And they have pretty much a gun pointed at anybody at any given time. Now, if you were to take the science fiction part out of it and put in the reality that we live in today,
drones.
Exactly, drones. I mean, that's exactly what's going on now. Obama signed the order saying a drone is pretty much targeting U.S. citizens. Google search that, ladies and gentlemen. We encourage you to do your own research.
Well, yeah, actually, personally, one of my best friends growing up, I won't say his name, but he actually went to Maryland, worked for a company called Raytheon, and
which, by the way, is backed by Bush and Cheney. Keep going.
Okay, so he did a whole bunch of friend or foe recognition software for drones, so they can basically they grab a picture of your face, it sends it back to a general or commander, and then they click a button to say yes or no to the drone, and we'll shoot them or not.
Right. I mean, just as simple as that. So, if somebody hates you for that day, I mean, you're pretty much, yikes.
It sends a Reaper drone will send a Hellfire missile to you, and that is the end of your life.
But going back to the Winter Soldier, the whole message of it, I mean, it just shows the whole civil war within the government ourselves. You have the globalists versus the patriots within our government, and that's the message that we also got to send out, that the patriots in our government are doing great things for us. And despite the whole blanket of NSA spying and everything, we also got real patriots. Edward Snowden, that's leaking the information.
So who did he give his message to, or his stuff? He gave it over to Julian Assange,
right,
who was in charge of WikiLeaks. And now France went ahead and put Julian Assange in their prison for leaking out too much governmental information. So it's a toss-up. I mean, do you want to know what your government's doing? do you not want to know what they're doing?
Well, so, I can just tell from majority of the people that
they don't care.
They don't care. And this is a message I almost send out to people. Even if you know what's going on, you do nothing, you're just as bad as the people not knowing what's going on. You know, I mean, for those who are awake and just idly stand by and say, hey, it's not affecting me, it is going to affect you. Yeah, it will come and get you and bite you. So whether you want to stand back in the shadows and gather all this information, you know so much, come on our show. Share it, you know. We'll do a special interview and talk about it. You know.
Well, so we'll talk about the point of the Captain Winter Soldier one, or Captain America Winter Soldier. That whole movie was based upon NSA.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they're doing. So the plot of the movie was SHIELD has has one main leader. Nick Fury was a director of it. Nick Fury only knew about part of it. They didn't allow everybody to know everything except for the main guy, which was Robert Redford, and he turned out to be the bad guy, and he pushed the final button to basically kill everybody that was against him.
Right.
Because it was all this software that could pinpoint anybody in the world by using electrical devices, and if you were against him, you died.
Right, exactly. And that goes back to what I was saying a moment ago, where it is a civil war within our government. So we need to defeat the globalists politically first. And absolutely, you know, you have all these like militia guys and everything. Oh, we got to defeat the government. And, you know, for those who've been in war, it is not pretty. It is not pretty. You know, you have multiple lives lost. Just in the Iraq War, Afghanistan, you have over 5,000 people died, you know, and it's sad to say, I mean, unless you've actually seen someone die, it really changes you, and stuff like that. So, I mean, before you go off and trying to fight the government, folks, they got drones that you can't even see that are flying above you, you know, with a push of a button, like we were saying, could take you out, you know.
We're actually in Vegas with one of the biggest drone bases.
Right, exactly.
And they fly all the drone missions out in the world from Nellis.
Yeah. So before you go and start, you know, raising hell against the government and everything else like that, we need to defeat them politically. That's the major thing. The power still lies within the local government.
Because we are still able to form militias.
Right.
Every state has its rights to do that. And Texas was a big one. They are the Lone Star State for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. But that pretty much wraps it up for the NSA. Again, folks, research this yourself. Knowledge is power. Can't express that enough. So, Shane and Lance signing off. Again, share us, support, subscribe. That's the only way we're going to grow. We're going to get more people to interview and stuff like that.
And then, they can look up the devices NSA uses and what FBI is using. Some like their small devices like Stingray devices, against cell phone trackers, and some of the things Secret Service even used when we were with Bernie Sanders at Madara. They have jamming devices, so they won't say they're using them, but
they are using them. And also the cameras on your computer, your cell phone. This video that we're shooting with our iPhone is all being monitored and watched. So again, stay vigilant. You are the fight for liberty, and continue the fight. Shane and Lance with the stand.
Signing off.